This is your buddy Bruno once again. It is right now, about 21:20, or that's UTC, by the way. It would also be 16:20 Central Daylight Time, otherwise known as 4:20 in the afternoon. And in 24 hours, I have an appointment up at the Bloomington Public Library to speak with an attorney. Um, it's supposed to be Kimbara Harrell, who is a retired circuit court judge, and she helps to provide a little free legal assistance to those of us who may need advice, and it help with with what we perceive to be legal issues. And I'm going to be taking the documentation that I have concerning the letter that I found taped to my door a few months ago, or not, a few weeks ago, I should say, and see what she has to say about it. Something I did today at about 09:45 this morning, Central Daylight Time, is I went to the office of Fehrenbacher LLC and spoke with Mr. Tom Fehrenbacher and his receptionist. If you look at the upper left hand of the cover or the thumbnail that accompanies this video, you'll see a screenshot, or you'll see an image, which is actually the cover letter to the documentation that I found on my taped to my door, I should say, a few weeks ago. And as you can see, according to the header, it says Fehrenbacher Mobile Home Park, address 1500 South Whittle Avenue, Olney, Illinois, 62450. And then it gives the telephone number of area code 618-202-5567, which also corresponds with the number that was given to me by the Richland County Tax Assessor's Office for Andy Maines out of Terre Haute, who allegedly is the local manager for the mobile home park here. But nonetheless, this tenant statement does show the address of 1500 South Whittle Avenue, Olney, Illinois, for Fehrenbacher Mobile Home Park. So I took the letter and went up to talk with Mr. Tom Fehrenbacher and asked him if I could pay my rent there. And he said that they have nothing to do with the mobile home park anymore, and that he receives calls and people that come in and want information, and does receive mail addressed to Fehrenbacher Mobile Home Park, 1500 South Whittle Avenue, Olney, Illinois. And he no longer opens the mail, he throws it away. That's right. He no longer opens the mail, he throws it away. Now, I've been acquainted with Tom for a long time. And I explained to Tom that, I won't digress yet. But I was quite alarmed when he told me this. And that's because, ideally, and in a perfect world, what a business should do when they receive mail addressed to them and they're no longer a part, or that mail that's addressed to them is mailed to a subsidiary or a controlled entity that they no longer have control of. They should either A, forward it to the individual that does have control of it, of which Tom said he did not know who it was anymore, Or B, simply write return to sender on the envelope and then take it up to the post office or give it to the mailman and say, this doesn't belong here anymore. That we no longer have control of the Fehrenbacher Mobile Home Park. Perhaps one of Tom's biggest mistakes when he sold the mobile home park initially was to leave his name upon it. He should have changed the name of the mobile home park beforehand, but evidently he didn't, and now this has created a lot of confusion for him. But for him to simply throw that mail away is not right either. There could have been rent checks in that mail. There could have been other important correspondence in that mail. But simply to throw it away, that's not very responsible. That's very apathetic behavior. But rather than confront him on this, I did not want to aggravate Tom any further than he already was. And he is very aggravated with this. And he said he didn't know what to do. I know what to do, but I also know that Tom wouldn't listen to me. Like I said, 1, I would have written return to sender on the envelope and then made sure it was taken to either the post office uptown or given back to the mailman for return to the sender. And that's that. You just address not valid, because simply put, mail for the mobile home park doesn't need to go to 1500 South Whittle Avenue anymore. We have been separated from Fehrenbacher LLC. All right. But even on this tenant statement and the letter that I received, it still has listed Fehrenbacher Mobile Home Park, 1500 South Whittle Avenue, Olney, Illinois, 62450. But they don't have an office there. Tom does not receive correspondence there. They do not have any business whatsoever in the structure at 1500 South Whittle Avenue. The other thing that Tom should do, because whoever is using their address as a delivery point for mail and listing it on their correspondence with their tenants, is actually deceiving the tenants and also potential tenants into thinking that Tom and Fehrenbacher LLC is a responsible party. So this puts a great burden on Tom. What he should do is go up to the post office and ask for a postal inspector to get to the bottom of this. Explain to the postal inspector that he is no longer associated with the Fehrenbacher Mobile Home Park as a business entity. He is no longer associated with it, but he continues to receive mail, and a tenant, me, has come to him and said that this is what he was led to believe, that possibly this was the office once again for the mobile home park, and that he had to tell me and any other tenant who had been in there, and from what Tom told me, there had been more than a few, that it was not. The postal inspector would probably or should inspect this under postal fraud. Interesting thing about postal fraud is nothing actually needs be mailed in order to violate the postal fraud laws. But the use of an address to mislead or misdirect mail is postal fraud and deception. That is not only a crime within the state of Illinois, that's a federal crime. It's not a civil matter. It's a criminal matter. So Tom should go to the post office with this. Now, Tom, I didn't tell him to because I didn't want to aggravate him anymore. But tomorrow, before I go to the library to speak with Ms. Harrell, I will be going to the post office to collect my mail, and I may have just enough time to speak with the postmistress and find out if I can speak with a postal inspector about this. And maybe something can be started there. Yeah, it's a mess, folks. It's a mess. So with this statement, this cover letter to this statement, with the wrong address for the Fehrenbacher Mobile Home Park business office on it, do you think that I am going to actually write these people a check? Do you think I'm actually going to use a portal that was created in my name using that same address? 1500 South Whittle Avenue, but lot 77, Olney, Illinois, 62450, with an out-of-date telephone number? I don't think so, folks. I don't think I'm going to use their electronic portal. If they can't get their address right or admit to the correct address, there's no way I'm going to do it. That's deceptive practice, and I'm not going to fall for it. So I let Tom know about my plan. And this is based on something that happened to me back in the mid-1980s when I worked for Prairie Land Shuttle. We weren't being paid on time. Sometimes us drivers who drove back and forth to O'Hare Airport weren't paid at all. No paycheck, nothing. When it finally got to the point that they were a month behind in paying us, I came up with a plan. I told the other drivers to collect the receipts, the cash receipts and the checks and the tickets. We would put them in an envelope with a little detailed explanation of what was what, and enclose the cash and the checks and seal that envelope. And then we would deposit it in a lockbox at either the Howard Johnson's in Peru, Illinois, or in a lockbox in the office in Bloomington, on the Bloomington side. I was working what we called the LaSalle Peru run out of Peru. And I told the boys, I said, gentlemen, give me all those envelopes from now on. And I will place them in a separate lockbox that only I will have the key to. And they will remain in that lockbox until the management company, who was not paying us, came forward to collect it and distribute to us in cash what we were owed, less the amount for state and federal taxes. We were smart enough, we could actually figure the amount that should be deducted for state and federal taxes. And I told them, I said, we know how to do this. We know what the percentage rates are for state and federal taxes. We can make those deductions so that we only receive the cash that we normally would have received in a check. And if they don't show up in time, then I'll hold the cash until the state police, the sheriff's office, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, or the U.S. Marshal Service comes up with a warrant. And then I would surrender it to them. Well, about a week later, I received a phone call from AL Management, who was managing for Prairieland. And without giving too much away in general public, they had some serious issues. And they wanted their money. Well, we wanted our money too. Simply put, we needed to eat. We had rents to pay. We had insurance to pay. We had our responsibilities. But they wanted the money for our work without paying us for our responsibilities. And I told them that, simply put, that money remains in that lockbox until either the sheriff's office, the state police, or federal law enforcement, meaning the Federal Bureau of Investigation or the Marshal's Service, would show up and collect it, unless they came up and they paid us in cash what we were owed. Well, there was a big meeting. Most of the drivers were there. It took place in the conference room at the Howard Johnson's in Peru. We were paid, and we were paid in cash. They tried to negotiate their way out of it. We held our ground. We got paid. And then a few days later, I received a call from our supervisor. He asked me to collect up all the keys for the coaches and then to hold them until he got there, because the bus company had folded. The financial institutions that had financed the purchase of the coaches we drove had foreclosed on them. And as it turned out, that was the end of that. So we got paid, and that was the end of the bus company. I need not elaborate much further, but it solved the problem. In this case, what I am doing, what I've decided to do and already have done, is I have opened up a lockbox here in a bank in Olney. The only thing that will go in that lockbox are either my rent checks or my rent checks and the rent checks of anyone else who wants to entrust me with them, who's also upset with this letter and what's happening. They will remain in that lockbox until such time as either the sheriff, the state police, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the United States Marshal Service, or the actual owners of the mobile home park arrive and demand an explanation. Of course, I'm going to demand an explanation too. I will want to know why the law has been violated. I'm not the only one who wants to know. They may find themselves with a surprise greeting when they get here. This has to stop, this kind of behavior. Not only the apathetic and irresponsible behavior of people like Mr. Fehrenbacher, who merely throws those letters away that he receives, addressed to Fehrenbacher Mobile Home Park, but also the predatory behavior that mobile home park ownership frequently focuses on the tenants that live on their property. We're not serfs living under a king. We are tenants living under a landlord. There are laws in the state of Illinois, in the Landlord and Tenants' Rights Act, and also in the Illinois Criminal Code that protect both parties. Not just one or the other, but both. And they lay out the way we should behave and our obligations and our responsibilities to one another. And simply put, if they can't function within those realms, then they should not be permitted to operate a mobile home park in the state of Illinois. Now, I don't know if I'm going to be very successful in finding an attorney. I don't know if I can bring this to the attention of law enforcement. But I do know of at least 2 other tenants, and possibly 2 more beyond that, which makes 5, who are quite upset with these tactics. And I haven't asked very many people about it. I'm not doing this for Bruno Biaffa. I'm doing this for the other tenants in this mobile home park as well as myself. Because simply put, as I said before, if you don't stand for something, you're going to fall for anything. I don't know what else to say. It's a rough way to go. It's a little frightening. It's also a little disheartening when I see the reactions of people like Tom that simply throw mail away as opposed to turning it back to the post office with just a simple, return to sender, address incorrect, written across the envelope. Sure, it would leave the sender a bit confused, but that's how predatory mobile home park owners and mobile home park managers can be. They want to keep their tenants confused, because when tenants are confused, they're also afraid, and they're easier to dominate. I'm blessed. I've had experience with things like this before. But the people who live here who have not had my experience, they need all our prayers, because nobody should have to live in fear. There were 4 freedoms that were talked about back in the day. The freedom from want, the freedom of worship, the freedom of speech, and the freedom from fear. Americans who use fear to intimidate other Americans are violating one of those 4 precious freedoms that our forebears fought, lived for, and died for. Shame on them. Please don't be one of them. Please don't let other people intimidate people just because they can. Because sooner or later, they may get enough power that they'll come around and intimidate you too. It will happen. So don't intimidate people like these people are trying to intimidate us. Be respectful to each other. Treat each other as your equal. Good luck. Godspeed. And we'll see you around town.